"Don't kill him so quickly, Mr. Lewis. You've got to torture him slowly," Leighton cried out when he saw that Tommy had arrived. "Are you teaching me what to do?" Tommy's brows knitted together, and he cut his gaze at the young man. With that mere glance, Leighton was so terrified that he almost peed his pants. He hastily backed away while exclaiming, "No, no, of course not. How dare you speak to Mr. Lewis in such a manner, you bastard?" Yoel stepped forward and slapped him hard across the face. Then he flashed Tommy an apologetic smile and murmured, "My son didn't know any better, so please don't take offense at him, Mr. Lewis. Let me tell you something, Yoel Scott. Indeed, I owe the Scott family a favor. However, I'm not a servant of your family. I hope you understand that," Tommy warned in an icy voice. "Yes, of course I understand that. You're an esteemed guest of the Scott family, Mr. Lewis. How could you possibly be a servant?" Yoel was frightened to the point that he broke out in a cold sweat. He shot his son a glare. Leighton had been hurting from his broken arm in the first place, so he presently hung his head low without daring to utter a single word after the slap. Satisfied with Yoel's attitude, Tommy shifted his gaze back to Jared. "Mr. Lewis, it was only a moment of rashness on Mr. Chance's part. The bride was his girlfriend, but Leighton stole her, so he was a tad resentful," William explained with a cheery smile as he hurriedly moved forward. "Oh, I see." Tommy nodded, finally understanding why the seemingly ordinary man dared to kick up a fuss at the Scott family's wedding. "Ah, so it turns out that his girlfriend was stolen from him." But in the next moment, something occurred to him. He abruptly froze and asked William, "What did you just call him?" "He's the richest man in Horrington, so why would he address a young man in his early 20s as Mr.? There must be a reason behind it." "Mr. Chance." William wore a baffled expression, but he soon realized what the man meant. Thus, he explained, "Mr. Chance saved my life, so I'm going to protect him today no matter what." It was only then that Tommy fully understood the entire matter. In actual fact, this was just a trivial matter, but it became a huge deal when the Sullivan family and Scott family started butting heads. And that's why the Scott family called me here. Look at what a massive commotion you two created out of this trifling matter. You're both influential figures in Horrington, so you should have a care for your image. Since this kid made a scene during the wedding and injured the heir of the Scott family, he can't be allowed off the hook easily. However, his offense doesn't warrant the death penalty. Just cut off one of his arms and have him apologize publicly for his mistake." Even as he chastised both William and Yoel, neither of them dared utter a single word of protest. In attaining his position as the underground king of Horrington, Tommy didn't just rely on his fists, but also his brains. He could easily make Jared disappear from the face of this world for this trivial matter, but that would offend the Sullivan family in the process. While he wasn't afraid of them, it wasn't worth doing so after weighing the pros and cons. Meanwhile, the Scott family merely wanted to keep their pride intact, so it would appease them to have the man sever his arm and apologize publicly. Leighton would also be able to vent his anger. With that, the Scott family gets to retain their dignity, and I don't offend the Sullivan family either. It's a win-win situation for me. What do you two think about my suggestion?" he questioned when he noticed that both William and Yoel were keeping mum. He didn't bother asking the person in question, Jared, because the man was just a chess piece in his eyes. As such, Jared had to do whatever was demanded of him. "Whatever you say, Mr. Lewis." Neither William nor Yoel dared to have any objections. "Isn't this simple? Why must you make a huge fanfare out of things? It's as though it's a matter of grave importance." Tommy chuckled before turning his gaze on Jared. "Kid, I'll let you off if you now cut off your arm and apologize after having caused trouble during the wedding and injuring someone's son. Otherwise, I'm afraid that you won't be able to leave this place alive." Jared glanced at Leighton, who was looking all smug, waiting for him to sever his arm and go over to apologize to him. "They don't deserve it," he murmured placidly.